Matthew here from MiniWarGaming.com, and welcome to another Shadows in the Warp list building edition. In these videos I have been showing some of the potential lists that you can build with your Tyranids, and in the next two videos I'm going to do the same thing. This first one, I'm going to answer a question that I received on my latest sit and talk, at least the latest at the time of me recording this, and it was from El Demonio de Revolucion. He asked, is a shooting Tyranid army a viable strategy? And in the sit and talk I said, yes, of course it is. It's not as good as maybe some of the other shooting armies out there, but you can definitely theme your entire army around shooting. So this video is going to show you how I would create a shooting Tyranid army. And the next video that'll be available in the link at the link below to MiniWarGaming Vault members is going to show the Living Tide army. And this is one of the formations in one of the data slates, which creates an army between 3,500 to over 5,000 points that just has spectacular abilities, obviously only going to be used in bigger games. So you can click the link below to go and watch that one after this video. So let's take a look at the shooting Tyranid army. The core part of this army, this is 1,000 points right here, is a lot of obviously good shooting, and that's what we're going to focus on here. Well, we have our Termagants, Warriors, Exocrines, Biovores, and Hive Guard, and a Tyranid Prime. Now, we're always going to be trying to build Battleforged lists. You can do a lot of stuff with Unbound, of course, but I always like to stay within Battleforged for all of the benefits for the Combined Arms attachment and the formations, although you can use formations in Unbound as well. It's just something about keeping it Battleforged that makes it feel more legitimate for your regular games. So in our regular list, we have a Combined Arms attachment that features 1 HQ choice and 2 troop choices. So it's the minimum requirement for the Combined Arms attachment. The main HQ is a Tyranid Prime who is armed with a Miasma cannon. The Miasma cannon is one of the Tyranid relics, so it's a unique weapon that can only be brought once in your entire army. That has the Poison 2+ AP4 special rule, and it can either be fired as a template, which is good, but even more importantly, can be fired as a small blast up to 36 inches away. So this Tyranid Prime can fire a blast 36 inches away that is Poison 2+ AP4. However, he performs another very important function, which is when he joins a group of warriors, they use his ballistic skill of 4 instead of their own ballistic skill of 3. And so he will be doing that to augment the shooting of one of the warriors in this army. Here we have 2 groups of 20 Termagants. Now half of these are armed with Flesh Borers, and the other half are armed with Devours. It's interesting, when I was at Valhalla, I was playing the Termagants with Devours, and somebody came up to me, and I can't remember who it was, and they said, have you ever considered having mixed units with Flesh Borers and Devours? And that way the Flesh Borers could be out front, and they would be the first to die, so you only lose your cheap models at first, and then the Devours could be at the back. And I had never thought of doing that before. In my mind it was always, you had a unit all with Flesh Borers, a unit all with Devours. Even though I knew you could do it, it just never really dawned on me that I could try that. And so I found this to be quite effective, because normally you'd have to have an entire unit that is twice the cost. A single Gaunt is only 4 points. A Devourer on a Gaunt, however, also costs 4 points, bringing their points cost from 4 to 8. It does triple the number of shots they have. It goes from a single shot pistol 12-inch range to Assault 3 18-inch range, still strength 4. So it's a lot of extra firepower, but it also means that every model you loses those 3 shots. So each model is a big loss. So by combining your units like this, you get the firepower and the range of the Devours while not sacrificing too many points for them. We also have 1 elite choice, which is a group of 3 Hive Guard. If you're going to have a shooting army, you want at least 1 group of Hive Guard. You could easily bring 2, and some could even argue to bring 3 groups of them. They're not quite as good as they were in the previous edition, where their ballistic skill is 4 instead of 3, but I still find them usually to be quite effective. No shooting Tyranid army would be complete without a living artillery node formation. I've already talked about this in a previous Shadows in the Warp, but let's go over it again, just to talk about how awesome this formation is. So since it's a formation, it doesn't take up any of your Force Org for the Combined Arms attachment, which can allow you to bring other stuff in there instead. But really it's the combined benefit of what it has to offer that I really like. First off, to bring this formation, you must bring a unit of 3 Biovores, an Exocrine, and then a unit of 4 warriors. One of those has to be upgraded with either a Barbed Strangler or a Venom Cannon. I like to bring the Barbed Strangler just because the large blast usually is more effective than having strength 6 with a small blast. All the warriors get upgraded with Death Spitters. That's what I always do. And then the Tyranid Prime is going to join them all, so all those Death Spitters will be hitting on 3s instead of 4, effectively adding more attacks when you are firing them. It also helps scatter the Barbed Strangler a little less. In this formation, the Exocrine and Biovores and the Barbed Strangler shooting attacks get to re-roll their scatter dice when they are within 12 inches of this warrior group. On top of that, even when they're not within 12 inches of this warrior group, all the blast and barrage weapons have pinning, which has come into effect so often when I use this formation. So I just love it. It doesn't cost any extra points in order to bring it. You just have to make sure you meet the requirements of combining all these models together. So in a shooting army, this is a must. The Exocrine adds the Strength 7 AP2, which can take on Terminator armor. It could even hurt medium to light vehicles. The Biovores just destroy groups of infantry. Even Space Marines with their 3+ armor save go down to Biovores quite often. But they're most effective against a large group of Imperial Guardsmen or cultists or termagants. Anything that'll have, there will be lots of with only toughness 3 or 4. It will be very effective. So that is our core army, which in this case is only about 1,000 points. So there's a couple things that you can do to bring it up to 2,000 points. Let's take a look at that now. One of the options is the Sky Blight formation. Now this formation is feared by many for good reason, in that you bring a Flying Hive Tyrant, 2 Harpies, and a Hive Crone, and 3 groups of Gargoyles, obviously minimum 10 in each group. Now there's a few advantages to this group besides the fact that you have so many monstrous creatures and jump infantry. They have the Gargoyles have objectives secured, which, as we know, allows them to take an objective even if somebody else is contesting it, as long as they don't have objectives secured as well. So it plays really well to supplement the Combined Arms attachment where you have objectives secured on the Termagants. It just gives you that many more units. On top of that, whenever a group of Gargoyles is destroyed completely, on a 4+, you actually just place them into ongoing reserve and they come back on. And so 50% of the time, you're going to get them back. So if you have 3 groups of them, you're going to get 1 or 2 of those back, essentially giving you a 4th and maybe a 5th and potentially a 6th and potentially a 7th, because even those coming back can have a potential to come back again. And so it can make them very annoying. You can just run them up, grab objectives, they die, you get new ones, and because they're jump infantry, they can just get onto the board really quickly, moving their 12 inches. On top of that, you're bringing 4 flying monstrous creatures. Now this is not a formation you want to bring without a little bit of warning to your opponent, because bringing all flying monstrous creatures like this can be a little bit cheesy, just like somebody bringing lots of flyers. Now it's not quite as cheesy as flyers because, well, flying monstrous creatures can be shot down if they are successfully wounded. And let's face it, the Harpies and Hive Crones are really not that hard to hurt, with their toughness being lower and their armor save not being that great. But there's a lot of firepower here between either the twin-linked heavy venom cannons or twin-linked stranglethorn cannons on the 2 Harpies, to the spore mines that can be dropped. I like to upgrade the Harpies and the Hive Crones with either cluster spines or the stinger salvo, but especially the cluster spines. It gives them an extra shooting attack that is 18 inches away. I like the large blast strength 5. The Hive Tyrant is given, of course, 2 sets of twin-linked Devourers, because if you're going to go for shooty, there's no better way than to have a flying Hive Tyrant with 2 sets of twin-linked Devourers to do that. So this formation will be very effective. It's very fast. It lets you get around. The Hive Tyrant provides a little bit of extra synapse, but it does have the disadvantage of still not providing tons of synapse to your army. Another option for the other 900 and some odd points is to bring the Subterranean Swarm. Now this one's surprisingly effective for shooting, even though when you look at it, it looks like a close combat formation, which it also is. This includes a Trigon Prime, a Trigon, a Moloch, and 3 groups of at least 3 Raveners in each of them. And what I do is I upgrade the Raveners to all have Death Spitters. So when they pop up out of the ground, each unit is firing 9 shots. They're hitting on 4s and they're strength 5, so very, very effective. And then the Trigon Prime has his normal bioelectric pulse field, which is 12 shots, strength 5, and the Trigon has 6 shots at strength 5. And the Moloch, while he doesn't have a shooting attack, kind of acts like a shooting attack when you deep strike him in, and he does a strength 6 AP2 blast against the enemies. So this can be very surprisingly good formation, as it allows basically nothing here can really mishap. The Trigon comes in, he scatters, can't mishap because of his own rules. You place the Raveners around him as long as they're within 6 inches. The other Trigon deep strikes is normal but can't mishap, and the Moloch, you kind of want him to mishap so he can do the damage that he needs to, and then hopefully do that over and over again for the rest of the game. Of course, there are the other options that are clearly made for a shooting Tyranid army. For example, this group right here is about 920 points. What we have are 3 Carnifexes, couple them with Twin Link Devourers. The third one has a heavy venom cannon, or a barbed strangler, sorry, Stranglethorn cannon. And what I would probably do is take the 3 Carnifexes, all with Twin Linked Devourers, just to get 12 shots each at strength 6 Twin Linked. We have a couple Tyrannifexes. My preferred thing is Acid Spray, but once you're bringing a couple of them, you could bring the Rupture Cannon for that long-range strike 10 shooting. And then with your leftover points, you can throw in another group of Warriors, because the one big thing that this army is lacking is Synapse. In fact, you might even consider swapping out a couple things just to get another little group of Warriors or something else in there. So yes, a shooty Tyranid army is totally viable, and in fact is quite a good strategy. You could bring an army that is totally close combat, and that would work for Tyranids as long as you have enough swarms to make up for all the losses you'll have. But you can also really surprise your opponent with the amount of firepower that Tyranids can put out, just because they do not have a reputation necessarily for really good shooting, but that's largely undeserved and really just a relic from older editions of Tyranids. So this is the end of this list building video for Shadows in the Warp. Go ahead and click the link below to go and watch the Living Tide video, where we show a 5,000 plus point army that is one single formation in one of the data slates from the Rise and Leviathan that Games Workshop put out for the Tyranids. And it provides some really awesome bonuses and is quite a good army, actually. So go ahead and click the link below. If you're not a Vault member, you can still click it and get a free 7-day trial. And if you like the Vault, you can stick around, and hopefully you will, because it helps support us to make these videos. But even if you don't like it, you still get instant access. You can try it out and then cancel, whatever you decide to do. Thanks for watching, and happy wargaming.